This is Matt Greenlee. I teach 8th grade science at Carter Middle School. Go Hornets. The handout that accompanies today's lesson can be found at the Knox County Schools website under the Student Resources tab. This is Activity 2 for 8th grade science. And today we're going to learn about natural selection and environmental changes. If this video is hard to understand, turn on the closed caption if available. Adjust the playback speed to slow down the video. Consider watching short clips, then pause, listen, and watch again. Ask someone in your home to watch the video with you. Stop frequently and talk to your partner about what you heard and understood. Okay, so we are going to be talking about natural selection and how that comes into play with drastic environmental changes. Our essential question is going to be, how did variations in the peppered moth species allow for survival during a dramatic environmental change? Okay, so let's look at a few words here. Adaptation is a change or process of change by which an organism becomes better suited to its environment. In other words, this is something that is going to assist an organism with survival. Now, variation, any difference between individuals of the same species. If you want to see variation, when we finally get back to class, just look around the room. You'll see we're all humans, we're all the same species, but we all have a lot of variations from how tall we are, color of your eyes, hair, skin. These are all genetic variations and within one species. Natural selection, the process whereby organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring. You've probably heard the term survival of the fittest used with natural selection. So before we start our actual lesson, we are going to prepare for the activity with making these. Now, if you have newspaper and construction paper at home, that's preferred. But I know a lot of people don't get newspapers anymore. So what we have right there, I have, if you see, drawn on a piece of paper some dots and dashes, and then on the other side just scribbled in and made it black. Now, whether you're using the newspaper and construction paper or just a piece of paper with a Sharpie, make sure you leave enough room at the top to cut out some moths. And that's what our activity is going to be on. So I'm going to give you a minute here. Pause the video, and when you're done, start the video back up and we'll start our lesson. Okay, so the reason we made these, this part, the newspaper or your dots and dashes, is going to represent a lichen-covered tree. And a lichen is a combination of algae and fungi. Alice Algae took a lichen to Freddy Fungus. That's one way to remember it. I just thought I'd throw this slide up here. I'm sure you're all knowing what a lichen is now. You see these things growing on rocks, trees. I've even seen them growing on synthetic materials. All right, so now, first thing we're going to do, we're going to read our passage. And then we're going to make predictions, and this will make sense. All right, so the peppered moth is commonly found throughout the British Isles and is one of the most famous examples of natural selection at work. Most peppered moths are white with black speckles across their wings and body, thus the name peppered moth. However, due to genetic variation, there is a small percentage of peppered moths that are black, also called melanic. Under normal circumstances in Britain, healthy trees are covered in lichens. Moths typically fly at night, but rest on the trunks of trees during the day to avoid predators. Moths are an important food source for birds in this area. Birds fly in and pick the moths off the trees as they rest on the tree trunk. Okay, so now what you're going to do, you're going to move your moths to the lichen covered portion of your tree trunk, and you're going to make a prediction about which one is most likely to survive. Just answer question number 1 and then start the video back up. All right, excellent work. I knew you could do it. As you see here, the white with black speckled peppered moth variation is more likely to survive and have offspring, while the black variation of the moth is going to be more susceptible to predators just because it stands out so much. If we look over here, here is an actual picture of a peppered moth right there, and it's on a healthy lichen covered tree, very well camouflaged. So about 98% of the peppered moths are going to be white with black variation, and then only about 2% are actually going to be the black variation of the moth. Now this is under normal, healthy circumstances. And then insert the Industrial Revolution. So we're going to read the passage, and then we'll get back to the slide here. So during the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution was underway, and cities did not have regulations to control pollution. Pollution was not only coming from industry, but people were also heating their homes with coal fire, which creates black smoke. Air in the cities became sooty, killing the lichens and blackening both trees and buildings. So, if we look here, I've included a picture of a soot-covered wall. Now, this is a wall, but this is what was also happening to the trees at the time. So, the lichens were dying off, and the trees were becoming black with soot. That does not look like something I would want my senior picture taken in front of, right? Okay, so now you're going to move your moths to the black soot-covered tree. And answer number 2, so pause the video and start it back up when you're done. Okay, so you crushed it once again, just like I knew you would. Now, the black peppered variation of the moth is obviously going to be more suited to its environment than the white variation of the moth with the black speckles. We can see an actual picture of one right here, there, and as you can see, it's really going to stand out to some kind of predator, like a bird especially. Okay, so now this was in urban areas where the black variation of the moth became the 98% of the species, and only 2% were white with the black speckles. But, however, in the countryside where pollution was not as prevalent, 98% of those moths remained white with black speckles, and the black variation remained the 2%. So, one more question. What happens if the air gets better and the lichens return to the trees? You're going to pause the video, move your moths onto the newspaper, and make a prediction. Oh yes, so eventually in London the air did get better. There were better regulations in place and pollution was controlled, and the tables were once again reversed. The white moth with black speckles was the majority of its species. So with that in mind, how could the pandemic be affecting the air pollution levels of your planet right now? Think about that, pause the video, start it back up when you're done. So this is some of the cleanest air that we've seen in many of our lifetimes right now, probably most of our lifetimes. I was reading some reports where certain places in India could see the Himalayan mountains for the first time, and in Delhi, nitrogen dioxide levels actually dropped by as much as 70% or more. Now, next question. Could this natural selection process have worked this quickly in larger animals? Pause the video, Write down your response. So, because insects do reproduce fairly quickly, it allowed natural selection to act more quickly itself. If you think about that, it was a very dramatic change in environment over a pretty short period of time. And if you think about something with a longer gestation period, I mean, an elephant, 22 months, it's almost 2 years of pregnancy. That's a slow process. Now, because insects can reproduce so quickly, that's one way they are able to become resistant to things like pesticides. And if you think about it, maybe 10% of the bugs survive after a farmer sprays a field. Those 10% are going to pass on the genetic variation that allows them to be resistant to that pesticide, and thus the next generation is going to have a higher percentage of insects that are resistant to the pesticide. All right, for part 3, the online Peppered Moth game simulation. You will go to the website listed here, and you will be at the Peppered Moth page. It goes in more detail about the Peppered Moth, which we've been learning about, natural selection, how to play this game, and the game itself. Now, this game is going to go with the graph on your handout. So you are going to play this game. You need to play it twice. You need to do it once under light forest and once under the dark forest conditions. Moths will be released. 50% of them will be black. 50% will be white with the black speckles. And you will be the bird. You will eat as many as you can. And I will just pull this up to show you. I feel like one of the YouTubers my kids watch play video games right now. And as you can see, there's a graph. After you complete your game, you will fill in your graph, and couldn't help myself. All right, guys. This has been Matt Greenlee, Knox County at home. Hope to see you safer at homies sometime in the near future. Have a good day.